Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Dazel. I'm from the Unisa Directorate for Counselling and Career Development. A very warm welcome to all of you who have joined us this afternoon. We will be talking about mastering workplace etiquette and professionalism. Just before we get started, I just want to share some announcements with you. Sorry about that. So you will notice that your camera and your microphone are currently disabled, but we will enable these during the Q&A session, which will follow after the presentation. You are, however, encouraged to ask any questions or any comments that you have as you are listening to the presentation in the Q&A, as well as the chat on Teams. We just ask that you don't share any personal information, that is your personal email address or your telephone number, in the chat or the just to protect your privacy. We are recording the session and you will receive an email with a link to the recording later this afternoon. So our program this afternoon, as I've mentioned, we are talking about mastering workplace etiquette and professionalism. I will invite my colleague, Mrs. Mandu Makanya, who will introduce our speaker to us. Then we have Busisiwe, who will be sharing about the topic. We will have a Q&A session, and then we will try to finish at the latest 1:30. So with that, Mrs. Mandu Makanya, will you please introduce our speaker to us? Mandu?
My apologies. Thank you, Lisa. I was muted. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning, gentlemen. It gives me pleasure to introduce our speaker today. She started her articles at Fovis Mazars in 2019, where she served as a trainee auditor. She completed her articles in 2020 and was appointed as an auditor senior. She has experience in a vast range of industries and clients, ranging from JSE-listed entities to non-profit organizations. She has technical knowledge of various competencies in the accounting, auditing, and corporate environment. Ladies and gentlemen, our speaker today, she serves as a member of the recruitment committee at the Fovis Mazars. She has recently welcomed the new family member and navigating being a mom of two, a wife and a career woman. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give a round of applause as we invite Ms. Busisiwe Makanya to our virtual podium. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Mandu. Thank you, Busisiwe. You're welcome to start sharing your presentation.
Okay, please let me know if you see my screen, Lisa.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And thank you to the Counselling Career Development team for the opportunity. As mentioned previously, I have been in the auditing space for a few years now. And in those years, I've had the opportunity to work with people in different environments, formal, informal, setups, you may name it. And over the years, I have learned the importance of mastering a workplace etiquette and professionalism. And I think before I start, let's just start by defining what workplace etiquette and professionalism is. Workplace etiquette and professionalism are a set of social rules and behaviors expected in a professional setting, fostering a positive and productive work environment. So you might be in a workplace where it's formal, informal, working from home, working in a factory, working in a warehouse. They are a set of norms and standards that you need to adhere to so that it can be an environment which fosters productivity at the end of the day. So I've there's a long list of workplace do's and don'ts, but I've limited it to 5 do's and 5 don'ts due to time. And yeah, they're quite exciting. And some of them can be like common sense, but at times we need to be reminded about how to act and what not to do in the workplace. Don't. Do not be late. This may sound obvious. This may also be the time of your workplace may be set in a policy, and your timeliness at the workplace says a lot about how you view your employer and how you respect those ones around you. So it's especially important to adhere to time when you get to work, be on time when you join meetings, and also don't leave before before your workday ends, unless you have prior arrangements with your managers and your supervisors. Do not bring personal matters to work. This may sound obvious, but it's so easy to start engaging in talking about your personal issues in the workplace. This may not work in your favor because sometimes it also may impact the way you see your day, so it's very important to leave your personal matters at home. But I know there are workplace environments where they offer support if your personal matters may impact your professionalism. So you can ask your HR if there's counseling provided, or we've got leave days. Use your leave days. Use your annual leave days if you feel that your personal matters will hamper your working environment. Do not engage in office gossip. Office gossip, it can impact the culture of the workplace. It can make people feel unsafe in the workplace. So it's very important to not engage in office gossip. If you do find yourself in that environment, rather disengage or change the topic or just walk away. Just don't engage in office gossip, because if that office gossip reaches the ears of the person whom you guys are gossiping about, you can just imagine the ramifications from that, Do not act inappropriately at office functions. So in today's environment, the workplace, what we are trying to do in a workplace is to have what we call a work-life balance. So what we would do, we would have social functions to help us to disengage from our normal tasks and to engage with our fellow colleagues, have a better relationship, because having good relationships outside of the workspace also impacts our tasks and how we do things in the workplace. So things like, let's take, for example, year-end functions. I mean, we have year-end functions where people would overly drink and start acting inappropriately. And that kind of behavior, believe you me, you think it may stay to one day. Come Monday, we will be talking about it in the office space. So it's very important to act appropriately at social events. Even things like when we go for lunch as a team, at team building, we go for lunch. You may be surprised to see that some people actually don't know how to eat properly. And that kind of a thing, you need to be very aware that you're with your fellow employees, you're with your supervisor, your managers. And at times your managers are looking at you during a social function to see how you conduct yourself. That can affect your promotions. It can affect you given more serious tasks in the working environment. Do not argue with your supervisors, your managers, and I also want to add, do not argue with fellow employees. So it's important that even if you do get, you don't agree on certain tasks, it's important to communicate that in a respectful manner. Also know the platform to which to communicate this. If you find yourself in a position where even when trying to have a normal discussion and that does not happen, what should you do? Should you escalate it to your manager? Should you go to HR? So it's important for you to have a healthy working environment with your fellow employees. Do's. dress appropriately. There is a saying that you need to dress the way you want to be addressed. So the way you dress in your working environment says a lot about how you see yourself and how you see your employer. This is normally also in a policy on how to dress in different environments. You may find it's very formal, so you need to have formal wear from Mondays to Fridays. There's some environments where Fridays they have jeans day. There's some environments where it's totally casual. But even in casual environments, there's also an appropriate way of dressing. So for example, crop tops are a total no-no. Shorts are a total no-no. I dare to say that even in some environments, revealing tattoos is a total no-no. So it depends from different organizations, what they would agree to. For example, in a creative space, I know that showing tattoos is not so much of a problem because it is a creative space. Having a mohawk is not a problem because it's a creative space. Having different color hair is not a problem because it's a creative space. But there's some environments where you're requested to scale it down a bit. So it's very important to dress appropriately for your workspace. Be respectful. This goes back to my don't, where I say that know how to communicate certain things. If you're arguing or if you have different ways to view things, be respectful in the way you communicate it. If you feel like your emotions are getting high, rather calm down or pull yourself away from the situation and address it when things are in a calmer environment. Use the proper language. You'll be surprised to know that there are a lot of people that use swear words when they communicate. It just comes very quick, and you may find that you're at a client and the client is using swear words. That does not mean that you need to match that. You need to always use the correct language, and also when you join an environment, make sure that you know what is the appropriate language to use. In some environments, they use English. In some environments, they use a blend between English and Afrikaans. It differs from workspace to workspace. I'll give an example about myself. When I was doing my articles, we would work in teams, and you'd find a group of employees using a different language. So when I wouldn't engage with them, they would ask me, "Busi, but you're not engaging with us." And my response was, because you guys are using a different language, I was assuming that what is being discussed does not involve what we are doing here. So I didn't feel the need to engage with you. And in that way, the team decided that, okay, wait a minute, I think we need to use English as a mean of communication so that everybody is involved in what is being discussed. Listen attentively. It's very important to, when your fellow colleague voices out an opinion, listen to it. It's a very bad habit to override what is being said while there's proper dialogue that's happening within a group. So it's very important to listen attentively, pay attention to what is being said. Proper email etiquette. You know, many people may find it as an obvious that, oh, I know that I must say good day, I hope you are well, you know. Those things may be common sense, but you'll be surprised to see the amount of emails we see when a person communicates, writes in a bold or writes in red. Those kind of things actually communicate, say a lot about, can say things that are not said. So, for example, there was a time where my senior was writing an email to a client, but she was not aware that the surname that she was using is not the person's first name. So that client saw it as disrespectful that you're calling me and saying, hey, Makanya, this is what I want to do. And in the same email, she had written in bold a certain text because she wanted to highlight it to the client. But the client had seen that as if she was shouting at them. But when we had explained that, no, this is what she meant to highlight the text, you know, so it's very important to use proper email etiquette. So what are the key takeaways from a workplace etiquette and professionalism? These we may not be able to talk about sorry about that. Workplace etiquette and professionalism may not be talked about at your workplace, but it is important to be professional at all times. And it may seem like it is common sense, but it is good to be reminded about how to act, what to wear, and what to look out for in the workplace. Thank you very much. Any questions?
While we give everybody a chance just to get their thoughts together on questions, I'm not sure, I don't think your situation is where you work online full-time.
Yes.
But maybe if you could also, just from your experience, I guess there are online activities that you engage in, just talk a bit about how do we manage also the online space in terms of now workplace etiquette and professionalism? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Lisa, you're right. I don't work online full time, but there are days where I do work online. And it's very important for those who are working online to remember that it's not so different from being in a formal workplace. Being at home, you still need to adhere to your working hours. You still need to adhere to the tasks that to your deliverables. It's also, you still do take lunch breaks. It's also very important that when you do work at home, there are boundaries that must be put in place, because I find that actually working from home is more difficult than working at a formal office, because working from home, you may find that you're not able to disengage from your workplace. You may find yourself working longer hours. So it's very important that you also establish that with your employees, that what are my hours? Do I work from 8 to 5? Or is it flexible? Can you reach me at any point in time or not? So it's important to know that even though you're at home, you still have to adhere to certain rules and procedures. So yeah, that's it, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Lucy. So the presentation was short and sweet, but we are really encouraging you, as you were thinking about coming to the presentation, as you listened to what was being shared. If you have any questions, you're welcome to raise your hand. On Teams, you just click on the raise icon in Teams. I will then unmute you. And also post any questions that you might have in the Q&A or on the chat. I saw a hand earlier. I don't know if it was, oh, I still see hands. Let me just go to the right place and allow the microphone. I'm sorry, I see your first name, but the surname is Gadi. You're welcome to unmute and ask your question.
Oh, thank you so much for the presentation. I just want to know, when you are fresh into a working environment, there are instances where you feel like saying a no, but in a polite way that does not cloud the waters or creates a lot of dust that may pave your way into negativity. Could you give me examples of how to say a no, which is part of your personality, which is the way you are trying to define yourself so that you get the space you deserve as a human being? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Actually, that's a very important question on how to say no, but without hampering your growth opportunities. It's in how you communicate it. Yesterday, I had heard a situation where a person was a commission earner, but because they are so good at communicating, their supervisor had said to the specific person that, can you help in training? So come month end, when people are earning their commissions, this individual did not get their commission because during the month they were training other employees instead of doing what they were employed to do. So in that kind of situation, I would approach my supervisor and say that, okay, sir, I have been employed to do 1, 2, and 3. Is it possible to be given the opportunity for me to earn my commissions first, and then if there's time, I would really love to assist with training, because that helps me to improve on this skill. It's in the how you communicate it that's very important. And also you must be very careful that saying no too much can sometimes hamper your growth opportunities, because at times we're given tasks that are above us to see how we are able to manage them. So it's all in the communication and fostering a good relationship with your supervisor so that you can have a safe space to communicate when you are uncomfortable. But also if you feel that you're being bullied into doing tasks that are above you, there are also channels that you can approach HR, to request for advice on how to communicate this. HR can also help in mediating the process of communicating between yourself and the supervisor so that it doesn't hamper your growth opportunities. Yes.
Thank you for the question. Thank you, Busisiwe. Thank you, Mr. Ngadi. I was just thinking, Busisiwe, as you were talking, is that, of course, there could be a fine balance between saying yes to too many things, which leads to you becoming overwhelmed, versus saying no to too many things, which, as you said, could impact on your growth. So I think the importance of also just managing what your needs are and how you could balance so that you yourself can also perform without having taken on too many tasks. Yeah. Okay, I see another hand. It's Ketumetse Baloy. You're welcome to unmute. I'm just going to allow your microphone. Ketumetse.
Good day. My question is regarding email etiquette. So you find that on the first communication, I'd say, dear so and so, hope this email finds you well, and I'd write the message. So as the communication continues, do I need to also continue writing, hope this email finds you well, as we exchange the emails, or how do I go about that? Thank you.
Okay, yes, yeah. It may feel that it's redundant, always saying good day, following emails. I would say maybe in addition to or following to your previous email, just to make the conversation go on and on. If perhaps it's an email in the following day, maybe we can say good day. I think it differs between you and your client or whoever you're communicating with, the relationship, I guess even seniority of a person. You may want to continue saying good day just for politeness and all that. Yes.
Thank you very much, Busisiwe. Sorry, I just want to help somebody who's struggling to enter the meeting. I'm just going to post them the direct link. Okay, let's see. Are there any other hands?
Sorry, Lisa, maybe in addition to that email question, you must be very aware of, there are times where we get emails for an entire organization. So it's important that when you respond to that email, don't respond to all, just in case you've made an error, because now having to retract that, sending an email to the entire organization may be quite a problem.
Yeah. So I guess it also comes back to, to be thoughtful and to be intentional in terms of all your communications, and to pay attention to details, as you mentioned now, not replying to all unless that's the kind of environment that you work in. You know, some workplaces it might be appropriate. But Sisiwe, this question here on the chat: how do you maintain your psychological safety in a very toxic environment where you can't complain because the HR director is actually the problem? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Wow. Yeah, and that's quite a difficult one, because then you don't have anyone to complain to, or you're fearing that you may lose your job. Wow. Okay, I think in that space, I think it's very important to the way you communicate it. You may state that, sorry, so and so, my contract my contract states that my duties are 1, 2, and 3. Is it possible that you may shift my duties, and I'm willing to sign a new contract that states that these are my new duties, and how does that even match my pay? It's very important that we all go back to a contract, because a contract is also a legally binding document. So there will be an impact if anyone deviates from that. Also, we must understand that there's other channels we can approach, like CCMA. I don't know what are the legal things that happen in CCMA, but you must understand that you don't just have your workplace, you have other channels to go to. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Busisiwe. We've got another hand here, Sawela. I'm just going to allow your microphone. Sawela, sorry, before you go ahead, I posted a link in the chat to join the meeting, and there was a setting that I had to change. If you're not logged in with your my Unisa email address, it might have happened to you, but I see people have now been able to come in. Okay, Sawela, you're welcome to unmute and ask your question.
Good day, everyone. I just wanted to inquire, in situations where you're employed, but you don't really have a contract, your contract was verbally, and it keeps on changing every time when it suits them. How do you go about saying, but this was what
Lisa?
upon? Okay.
Sawela, sorry, we lost you, and we heard that you asked about if there's not a formal written contract, and then we lost you.
Okay, but I think I get the gist of her question, Lisa.
Sawela? You get the gist. Okay.
Yes, I think I get the gist of her question. In my work environment,
I was just asking.
Yes, Sawela?
I don't. Was my question clear?
Yeah. I think I got the gist of your question. So what happens if you're working, but you don't have a formal contract, and your duties keep changing and shifting according to how your supervisors feel? So in my organization, we have what we say: if it's not documented, it's not done. So it's very, very important that I know it's easy as graduates to fall into a trap of just taking something because you want to get that experience, but it's not documented. It's very important for you to have a contract in place. I mean, even if it's in an email form to state what are your duties, how much are you going to be compensated for those duties, those basics. I mean, we can easily Google what are the key things on a contract that is needed, because now, for instance, if this goes to court, to go to the CCMA, you don't have anything to back you up to state that I've been working for so and so for this period, these were my duties, this is how much I'm getting compensated for it. It's extremely important to have a contract. Even as freelancers, my sister, she has certain duties that she performs as a freelancer. And in those duties, she at least has, as a bare minimum, even if it's on WhatsApp, to state what is needed, how long is she going to be working on the project for, and how much her rate is for the project and how much she's going to be paying once she finalizes it. Even if it's on WhatsApp, you need to have it documented somewhere where you all agree this is what's happening. Because if not, you will get abused, especially as students, because we want to rush to getting employment so that we can have experience. But we must remember to go back to basics. We need to have some form of communication where we formalize what are the terms of engagement. Yeah. Thank you, Suele. It's a very important question.
Just see where, just want to check. I don't see any other hands or questions in the chat. So while others are still thinking about it, I just want also to hear about, of course, you might be in a work environment where there are different or a very diverse group of people working. This could be different cultures, different generations. So how does workplace etiquette work in that context? Where somebody, I'm going to use, let's say, age. So somebody much younger may have a different idea from etiquette than somebody who's maybe from an older generation. So how do you manage those dynamics professionally?
Thank you, Lisa, for that question. You mentioned culture in your question. It's very important to understand the culture of your workplace environment. There are some cultures where it's okay for you to address an elderly person with a first name. And there are some environments where you need to add ma'am, sir. It depends, it shifts around from organization to organization. So it's very important for you to be aware of how things are done. Because remember, some workplace etiquette and professionalism, it's not set in stone. It's just in how things have been done over the years in the organization. So it's very important for you to observe how others are addressing their fellow employees and just technically fall in line. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Lisa, just maybe to add on, also just kind of understand that it's not always personal. And let me use an example. There are some audits where I've been on where it's an environment that's only males and they prefer to communicate with males as well. So don't take it as personal only, but just understand your clients, who you're working with. Sometimes it's in religion that maybe they prefer a person to be dressed in a certain way before they can communicate with them. So it's very important for you to be briefed before you go to a client about their environment, the culture, the do's and don'ts around that environment, so that for you to work with them, it's only for a short space of time. So there's no problem in you somewhat adjusting to that environment. Yeah.
Which now there is a question on the chat, but I just want to ask a follow-up. Sometimes you may hear the argument that by being in this specific workplace culture, follow certain norms, in terms of being professional, how does that balance with being authentic? Authentic or true to yourself? Sometimes there could even be a bit of a clash between, how you are expected to be in a workplace versus how you really are. So how does one also go about managing those kind of dynamics?
Yeah. Well, Lisa, I would say that being true to yourself, you still need to be professional at the end of the day. We must remember what the end goal is. What do we expect to do by the end of the day? What should we have delivered? And I could say being true to myself is that I'm a laid-back person. I take my time in how I do things. But the environment that you're in requires fast pace. It requires you to deliver things on the time, all the time. So it's very important for you to, while you're being true to yourself, remember the bigger picture. Remember what you are being paid for. Remember what your contract states. Remember what your responsibilities are, that be true to yourself, but at the end of the day, you must deliver. You are required to deliver. Yeah.
Thank you, Sisiwe. There's just a follow-up question on the issue of the contract. So the question, is it allowed to request a copy of a contract just to have it for yourself after signing the contract, or maybe before signing it after getting a job?
Yes, of course. I mean, there's also cooling off periods. After you've signed, just look at the terms of your contract. So after you've signed, are you allowed to get out of that contract? And also with employment, it's very important for you to have a copy of your contract. Most of the time, before you even sign, they've already sent it to you. So you can always keep it on you. You can always go over it now every time. You know, it's very important to have a copy of your contract. Yeah.
Thank you, Sisiwe. I think also maybe a follow-up question from that. I like how the question starts, is it okay for me to ask?
Yeah.
So I was
have
also
it.
just thinking, yeah,
Yeah.
but not just in terms of contracts. You know, often when we join new environments, we might be very hesitant to clarify, you know, what is happening here, what am I supposed to do, and so on. So it's also important to think about, you know, it's always okay to ask, but I guess I will come back to what you shared, is that it's not what you're asking, it's how you are asking
Yes,
it.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
We just have a comment here on the Q&A, very informative presentation. Emotional intelligence has taught me a lot in the midst of academic bullying. So I guess that also applies to the work environment. Is the whole issue around how do you equip yourself to be emotionally intelligent and to be able to navigate all of these quagmires in terms of professionalism.
Yeah.
Okay, I see there's something coming through on the how do you go about balancing the age and hierarchy in the workplace? For example, one is a young professional in position of power at work with an older individual in terms of giving orders and still remaining respectful to them.
Yeah. Well, in the workplace, despite age, it's a professional environment. And if we all have that understanding that we are here to work, we are here to deliver on certain duties, age shouldn't be a problem. We'll go back to saying one and the same thing, that it isn't the how you communicate. Even if you're younger addressing a senior, it's how you convey that message over to an older person. Even an older person working for a younger individual, it's in the how you address it, you know. Yeah, it's very important for you to communicate. And it was mentioned earlier, emotional intelligence is very important in a workspace. Yeah.
Thank you, Sisiwe. There's also a question about how do you write an email in a professional manner without sounding disrespectful, especially in capital letters or writing in red. So what are some tips for writing professional emails then?
Yeah. I'll just, you know, we are in a different environment now, where literally I can go onto Google and have that question, how to write a professional email. And you have different ways. So an email doesn't always have to say good day or start with good day. It can start with something else. It doesn't always have to be followed up with, I hope you well. There could be something else, or this email, I hope this email finds you well. You know, you can put it on, what is this AI tool that people are using now to find different ways on how to write a professional email. But the most important, other than the introductions, the most important is to make sure on the body of your email, I would avoid things that are writing in red, because red automatically triggers something. It's almost like, oh, what are you fighting? Or writing in bold, exclamation marks. It's very important for you to somewhat stay away from writing in bold, writing in red, exclamation marks, because what is said behind the laptop versus us talking one-on-one can be seen as two different things. So it's in the how you communicate it, even in email. And also, there's nothing wrong with putting it on Grammarly for it to like just proofread that what is being said could be received well. When we're living in AI, let's utilize these platforms to help us in navigating certain relationships in the workplace. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very important that you think about the tools that you have, free tools, by the way, that you have at your disposal. But also just a word of caution is that if you use one of these tools like AI, make sure that you still personalize the email. Because I've seen emails, from people who obviously used one of these tools, but then, for example, it would say, good morning, and then name in brackets. So it's not saying good morning, Lisa, for example. So just make sure that you are double checking the output that you get from the AI. But definitely it could help you learn how to be a better business communicator. And as you said, there are so many online tools available, articles that you can read, and the tools that you can use to double check your work.
And just to add on to, sorry, Lisa, just to add on to AI, using AI to assist us. Part of workplace etiquette and professionalism is to know that your work, whatever you're doing, is confidential. So if you're going to use AI, make sure that you don't put confidential information on AI to assist you in communicating an email, because there could be serious ramifications when you put confidential information onto AI, because it will be available to anyone around.
So I guess it would also be important to check in your work environment if there may be any formal policies or procedures in place that guide you, how we use AI in this context. There was another question here. I would like to know how to handle both a supervisor and a manager at work if they have different, I think the word is opinions. So maybe if you've got a supervisor and a manager that you report to, but they have different opinions about how the work should be done.
That's correct. We actually find that quite a lot in the workplace, where at the end of the day, the person that signs off and the person that's guiding you have different ways of seeing things. What I like about today's working environment is that we have a thing called open door policies. So it's okay for you guys to sit together in a room and hash it out. So it's not arguing, but it's sharing of ideas and knowledge. And most of the time, those kind of environments where you guys sit together, you come up with something so brilliant, whereas if it's just you receiving instruction from different bodies, let's rather encourage sitting together in a boardroom and communicating it, or having a Teams chat together and communicating it, so that we all reach the same conclusion.
Thank you, Sisiwe. There's a question that's more general in terms of CV writing, but to ask you now, in your opinion, is the use of a picture CV professional, or would you advise one not to use a picture, like a photograph of yourself?
Okay, so that's a very good question. And I would say that it's okay to use a picture. It's in the way the picture is. There are professional pictures where you just have this part with no background, it's white, and there are pictures where maybe you're at the beach. I mean, we can't use those kind of pictures. So I wouldn't mind you using a picture. I mean, from my perspective in the recruitment committee, you'd find a picture where it's just a white background, a formal picture, that is also acceptable.
Thank you, Sisiwe. I don't see any other hands or questions at the moment. You're still welcome to keep them coming in. Sisiwe is freely giving away her time to us this afternoon. So please, let's make use of it. But while others are thinking I'm wondering if you could be able to, you know, in your experience, you mentioned that you also sit on recruitment committees and so forth. Are there any kind of common I wouldn't say mistakes, but maybe ineffective ways that you see, especially you know, younger people entering the workplace, make you would be able to comment on, you know, these are the things in addition to what you've shared about the don'ts. You know, what are some of the things that we really need to take into consideration, especially when entering new workspaces?
I think do your research about the environment you're going into. For example, when you do interviews, it doesn't look good. In fact, we'll probably not even take your application any further if you don't know anything about the organization you are being you in which you want to join. So if I were to ask you why Forvis Mazars? Why you need to know exactly what does my organization stand for, how your values aligned to my organization, what are you going to add on to my organization. So it's very important for you to know about the organization that you want to join. Those are the things that I would say are very important.
Thank you. We've got a question. Kiriboni, your hand is up. You're welcome to unmute and ask your question. Kiriboni?
Good day. How are you?
I'm good in yourself. You can go ahead.
Okay. I would like to ask another question in case of maybe after graduate. How do you start looking for a job, a relevant job that you got a qualification for? Like for instance, I'm working at retail and I'm going to graduate for a government admin. So I would like to know how to engage or how to approach this, because sometimes I find it difficult for me to get experience first thing, because lately they need experiences everywhere. Kindly help me.
Okay, thank you, Kiriboni, for that question. First, let's start with getting into the right environment. We are fortunate that our universities provide what we call Careers Day. So it's very important for you to attend each and every single Careers Day and go to, if it's those physical Careers Day, go to the stalls in which your qualification is for and have those conversations. You know, when you go to a Careers Day, don't go to a store and just say, do you have a contract for me? Sit with that person and engage in conversation. Tell me what you like about your organization, you know, because those are the things that stick in that person's mind. Like, hey, that person asked me 1, 2, and 3 about my organization. So make sure that you attend Careers Days. And then another tool that is getting very popular nowadays is using LinkedIn. And it's in how you use LinkedIn. The other day, I was speaking to my colleague, and he had informed me that how he got into our organization was via LinkedIn. But he didn't just apply there. What he did, he researched auditing firms, and he knew that, okay, our auditing firm aligns to what he desires to do. So what he did, he looked for people who are in higher places, like our head of audit, and inboxed her and commented on a post that she had made about our organization and said, hey, I like 1, 2, 3 about your organization. I'm very interested. May I come through to just see your offices? She wasn't asking for a job. He just wanted to see the office. She was like, okay, fine, I'm free on this day. Come in and see the office. And from there, because he had a conversation with her, she actually just found him interesting and was like, okay, what are you studying? And he informed her, and she had said that, okay, we're having an intake at this period. Come join us. So it was very important to just, have those personal inbox people, find out if it's a credible institution, inbox them, comment on, like their statuses. I'm not saying stalk them, but somewhat show interest so that they will always remember that, you know what, there's so and so that's always on my messages. They're always messaging me, asking me about my organization, asking me about my passion for the organization. And that will draw them to you. You know, use your different platforms. But Careers Day is a very important one. And then after, use LinkedIn, use those platforms. Yeah.
Thank you, Busisi. I think what you shared now is really seeing how you could build out your network. How could you start having conversations with professionals who are working either at the organizations or in the industries that you are interested in, so that you can, start building that network. And I guess the same principles, what you spoke about in terms of professional etiquette, would apply to your online communications, on LinkedIn, for example. So it's also important to consider how you are branding yourself online, and that you are doing the effective things to help you get known in your industry. Yeah. Sisiwe, I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this, but let's ask. There was a question: is it advisable to apply for a position if it is stated that it's internal? I guess if you are not part of that organization, but a friend told you about this position that's available, in your experience, could that work, or is it very strict in terms of the internal ads?
Okay. For one, you wouldn't have known about it because it's internal. Usually internal positions, they would advertise them within the organization. And if they don't find anyone within the organization, then they'll go externally. So even if a friend does refer you, you'd still have to go through the normal processes of applying. So you wouldn't have access to that if it's an internal application. Yeah.
Okay, Pretty, your hand is up. You're welcome to unmute and ask your question.
Hi everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to ask a question to Sis Busisiwe. I've had, I'd say, a lucky streak of some sort, of getting multiple employment offers in the past 2 years. So, in the first job, I stayed for about 6 months and I got a better offer and I moved. And then with my second job, I also got a better offer, I think, in a year or so. And then I moved. And now I'm getting another offer for a better job that has a better pay. But I'm a bit skeptical of moving, in terms of how would it look professionally on my CV and my record. Is it okay to move from job to job, or do we need to stay for a certain period, maybe to sort of look reliable, if I would put it in that way? So my question here was navigating how long should you stay in a job before you move to the next thing, because we always chasing the better pay, if I would put it like that. So yeah, that's my question. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Pretty. I would say it's a catch-22 because both parties, you are the employee and there's an employer, are looking out for themselves. An employer will not want to invest in somebody who's going to leave them. But at the same time, as an employee, you need to desire to grow. Because if you don't grow, you become retarded, you don't move, and also we're also chasing a better pay at the end of the day. So it's a catch-22. Moving too much does look like you're not a stable person, or an employer would not want to invest in somebody who's going to just take that investment and move on with it. So yeah, it's a fine balance. It's a catch-22, but for you, it should be about growth. Also, money does play a role, but as an employer, I also kind of see why they wouldn't want to invest in somebody who's moving a lot. So I think it's also in how you structure your CV to communicate your experiences that you've had before. Yeah.
Thank you, Sisiwe. Just coming back to the chat before we go, I see there's another hand. There was also just a follow-up question on the CV writing. Is it necessary to write my ID number on the CV? And I guess that goes for, maybe some other personal information,
Yeah.
but especially the ID number, yeah.
That's very interesting. Actually, I'm not too sure. I think we need to go back to Poppy. Like, how, am I saying too much? Is it safe? Is it needed? I mean, sometimes when they advertise, they state exactly what's needed. What are they looking for? So maybe follow that. If it's not needed for you to say to have your ID, I think you can just put your birth date. That could be sufficient. And then once the interview process or the recruitment process goes further along, they will request for certain documentation, which an ID, a copy of your ID will fall part of it. I would start maybe just by having a birth date in the year of birth, not really releasing too much information, yeah. Because an ID is a very sensitive, an ID number is a very sensitive piece of information to have on your CV.
Yeah, I guess what I hear you saying is that if it's not being asked for, just be careful in terms of sharing it, especially as you said with the CV, which may be a public document.
Correct.
Okay, Vuiswa, I see your hand is up. You're welcome to unmute. Vuiswa.
Good day, everyone. Good day.
Hi.
Hi, Lisa.
Am I audible enough?
Yes, I can hear you.
Bit of background noise, but we can hear you.
Okay. All right. My question is that as somebody who is new, especially in a managerial position or in a management position, what would be the possible solutions to deal with workplace conflict, especially if it's like a conflict between colleagues? So my question is based on the fact that I am currently in a new managerial position, and there is a conflict that was ongoing way before I arrived. So it seems like now that I am in that position, they're expecting me to be able to come with solutions or rather suggestions on how we can go about resolving that conflict. It's as bad as people are not even communicating with each other, and it most of the time affect the workflow, because in order for you to be able to work as a team, especially, you need communication. Yeah. So when people have interpersonal conflict that stemmed from the workplace itself and way before you arrived, how do I deal with that? And especially because if your organization doesn't have external resources like industrial psychologists, social workers, you can rely on to actually help you find solutions.
No, okay, Risa. Oh, wow. Okay. Risa, you being in a new managerial position and this being a conflict that has been ongoing for a while, by now the workplace or they should have come up with some sort of solution. So for now, I would say this is an HR matter. If it's affecting, productivity, it's affecting the way things are supposed to be done so that you can get an outcome, we need to involve HR now. It's above you. HR needs to bring a solution in place. If it means that the parties need to be put in two separate divisions, let it be so. But right now, if it's affecting your output in the organization, then it becomes a real problem which needs to go to HR. If both parties have to get warnings, so be it. I mean, we are humans, so we are not objects. We can listen to instruction. We can, in a way, move ourselves so that we can be able to accomplish the bigger picture. Yeah.
Thank you, Sisiwe. There was also a question on the chat about how does one maintain work-life boundaries when working from home? I would actually extend that question, even if you're not working from there might be certain environments that actually encourage you to also be available basically 24/7, on like WhatsApp or whatever.
Yeah.
So how do you maintain that work-life balance?
Okay. I'll start with when you are working from home, because you don't have that opportunity of being face to face. It's important for you to always communicate, and also it's important for you to always reiterate the terms of your contract, because when you work from home, it can be difficult to disengage from what you're doing and go back to your normal lifestyle. And it's also in how you have set. If you set a tone of you're available all the time, then it somewhat gets accepted that, oh, I can reach out to Busi at 1 a.m. and she will respond to an email. If you have to put an out of office email at 5 o'clock when you knock off and say that you're welcome to send emails, however, I will be able to only respond during these hours, and you respond out of those hours, then you've set the tone on how you want to be treated in the workplace. And there are those environments, such as my environment, there are periods of time where you are working for long hours, but it's important for you to also to switch off. If your working hours are from 8 to 5, even if you're expected to respond out of those hours, no one can pin you down for not responding during those hours. It's what you do during the hours in which you are being paid for that are very important.
Thank you. So what I hear you saying is that it's quite important for you to learn how to set effective boundaries.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Busisi, we've got lots of questions here, but we still have. There was just one comment. I guess it was about the person asking, how long should you stay in a position? So there was a comment that you can be labeled a job hopper. But I think you also contextualized it for us. Of course, you are looking out for your own interest, but also just be aware of the kind of, how it may be viewed by certain individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Then there's another question here about CVs. I would like to know how long work experience should you include in your CV? May it be strictly from a year plus? So I guess it's about, should you leave out certain work experience? Do you include everything? How do you go about structuring that part of your CV?
Okay, I think I'll start by saying not all work experience is relevant for what you're applying for. So if you're applying for a marketing job, but you have experience in maybe audit, you have experience in audit and you have a bit of experience in the creative environment, I'd rather put the creative environment experience and take a bit out of the auditing environment and put it there. And I would also work backwards. Take your more recent experience and include it in your CV and then work backwards. So tailor make your CV for the position you're applying for. The more relevant, put it there. The more recent, put it there.
Thank you. I'm now reminded I saw a question a bit earlier. Now I'm missing it again. If I remember correctly, I'll just paraphrase. The question was about, if you've got gaps in your work experience, how do you
what?
also
Sorry, Lisa?
gaps. So maybe you were working for 2 years, then there's like
gaps.
a 1 year gap.
Okay.
Yeah. So how do you also strategically indicate that on your CV, or then if you're invited to an interview, how do you talk about that?
Yeah. Okay, so during your gaps, you need to speak about what you were doing to improve on the skills that you already had. What were you doing to work on them during those gaps, those skills? So it's not like during those gaps you're doing and sitting down and doing absolutely nothing. Speak about your hobbies, those things that will add to the organization that you're going into. Speak about how you improved on your skills, the courses you were taking during that time to remain professionally relevant. So speak about those things, yeah. And it's also very important while you're sitting and waiting, upskill yourself. There are many online courses, so that when you do get an opportunity, you speak about those courses, and how you having that kind of knowledge will assist in the position that you're applying for.
It also links for me, I know nobody asked about it, but I was just thinking, often, especially if you've just been studying, and now you need to start looking for employment, what you mentioned now is how can you show that you were also preparing yourself for certain kind of environments or certain kind of opportunities. So what other activities do you need to get involved in order to show, that you are growing in addition to what it is that you've studied?
Okay. Fortunately, in universities, we've got different committees, join those committees, volunteer work in your community. It adds to that, even if it's not relevant for what you're applying for, but it's building to the kind of person that will be working in that environment. So volunteer work, assisting in your communities, Mandela Days, get involved in that, that builds to the kind of person that you are. So even if you don't have professional experience, at least there are things that you can speak about that are outside of just academics, that you were just looking at your books, things that will add on to the person that you are when you get into that workspace environment.
And those activities certainly also help you to develop, more of what we can call the soft skills, or the interpersonal, how to manage relationships, how to build networks. So that's also why we encourage, look out for opportunities to develop those skills while you are studying.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, this interesting question here. I would like to know, how do you deal with workplace snitches, or a snitch professionally?
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that kind of environment also, maybe that encourages this kind of, that you need to report on others?
Yeah. When you say a snitch, it's almost like a negative term. So if you're being snitched on, are you doing the right thing in the first place? I mean, it goes back to what we're saying: workplace etiquette and professionalism. If you are doing what you are being employed to do, there shouldn't be a problem with dealing with a workplace snitch. I mean, if you are leaving earlier, but you've reported it, that you be leaving early to deal with a personal matter, you shouldn't be worried that you're dealing with a workplace snitch. Somebody's going to tell on you. So if you're doing what you need to do, you shouldn't have an issue with dealing with a workplace snitch. Yeah. Unless they are talking about false information, false accusation, then we are dealing with a different issue. Then we take it to HR, because that's a false accusation. It's baseless. Let's get to HR, and you provide evidence of how this was hampering you.
And then our next question, how to deal with a verbally and emotionally abusive boss, especially in a workplace where there's no HR department because the organization is small.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's quite difficult, because at the same time, you're concerned about your job security if you may lose it out. Let's go back to the contract then. If the boss is verbally abusive, you don't become abusive back, but you match somewhat that energy. If you're going to be timid, must remember, in a workplace environment, we are now adults now. You can't be timid. You need to be bold. You need to be brave and address a matter, especially if it's respectful. If it's respectful, they have no reason for them to fire you, for a lack of better words. If you do get fired, there are other ways. There's a CCMA route, which most people don't want to go through that, because now you have to provide evidence that this person was not doing their work. So if you're doing your work, you're doing what your job requires, what your contract is requiring you to do, there shouldn't be a need for somebody to fire you. So you need to be bold. you need to be respectful in addressing a matter as well. And at times, you need to be able to also call out your boss. If they are shouting at you, you keep quiet and you ask them respectfully, sir, could you please communicate to me in a respectful manner? Or I'll come back when emotions are better, you know. Yeah.
So I could imagine in that kind of situation, it would especially be important to take a look at how you can your skills in terms
Yeah.
of, for example, conflict resolution,
Conflict
the
management,
whole
yeah.
issue around emotional intelligence
Yes,
and
correct.
so forth.
Mm.
There's a question also here. If you are issued a work cell phone, would you be expected to answer or respond after hours? So we're giving you this phone, so you must be available 24/7.
I think when you do get the cell phone, Lisa, you need to be asking the questions. What is the cell phone for? What are the terms and conditions around the cell phone? Am I allowed to make personal phone calls? Is this does this work cell phone work only from 8 to 5? Beyond that, what is the terms and conditions around you issuing me that cell phone? That cell phone must operate just like office time. I can only be reached out between 8 to 5. But if you also make it a habit of you answering that phone at 6, 7, 8 at night, then you are creating a pattern in which, yeah, so from the get-go, you need to be very clear. What is the cell phone for which times can I answer it, and stick to that, even if you're tempted to answer it after hours. If you're answering it after hours, it needs to be pre-arranged that resolving matters after hours, is it considered as overtime? And if it's considered as overtime, am I going to be paid for that overtime? Yeah.
I really appreciate what you're sharing. And I was thinking about the concept of that you need to think about what you are negotiating through your actions. So maybe through not asking questions and accepting, that you can be phoned after hours, that it can lead to problems down the line.
Yeah.
There's just two CV questions. There's just a comment here. Busisiwe Makanya has the best answers. So please go ahead.
Thank you.
There's a question here about CV writing. What happens if I write skills that I don't have on the CV?
Yeah. Remember, whatever you write, you need to back it up in an interview. You get me? So if you say that I'm excellent with Excel and I give you the job, I expect you to be excellent with Excel. Or, I expect you to come with shortcuts and tricks and all that. So you need to be very careful what you put in a CV, because if you do get the job, I'm going to expect you to operate on that level and not so be very, very, very careful about what you write on your CV and what skills did you do have. But even in that said, if you want to be excellent on Excel, we have tools like YouTube that help us to navigate Excel, So yeah, put what you can do on your CV. And if you can't, upskill yourself.
Yeah, and I guess it also relates to the broader issue of being dishonest on your CV. Could also have serious repercussions.
And we're going
not
back
just
to workplace etiquette and professionalism. Yeah.
Exactly. Mandu, I see that your hand is up. You're welcome to go ahead.
Thank you, Lisa. This is a very interesting question about skills. It just reminds me, you've said a mouthful about the issue of dishonesty, and it becomes a catch when you go to an interview. I just want to make an example about language proficiency and being dishonest about language proficiency. Perhaps one can just take it for granted that perhaps this is an English or Afrikaans, or take it for granted, not knowing that, or saying that this is an Afrikaans-based company or English-based company, or a certain race. Let me just say, okay, white company. and you say, no, I am proficient in isiZulu, when you are, or you say I'm proficient in isiPedi when you are closer and the like. And you find that you go to the interview just because you said you have this level of proficiency in this African language, and you get a shock of your life that you might be having perhaps, for instance, a white panel, panel, and you find that there is someone in that panel who is so proficient in the language that you claim to know. So the best is to remain honest and never just take a chance with skills that you don't have, because
Correct.
the interview is going to test that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Mandu.
And to add on to Mrs. Makanya's point there, that you might get away with it in the interview, but then now you expect it in the workplace that, hey, you said on your CV that you're good in Afrikaans. We have this client that requires only Afrikaans speaking individuals to be on that audit. Believe you me, they will put you on that audit. Now you have to actually live up to what you said in your CV.
Yeah, so rather under promise and over deliver.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay, there's also a question here, example of I'm a PR student applying for a retail job. I don't really have work experience because I used to work at local township shops. Do I add this as a reference on my CV? Do I leave it out and go for a new beginning?
Okay. So the skills that you gained while working in that shop, are they relevant for what you're applying for? You know, and it's also how you phrase certain skills, you know, that you've gained. I believe that experience that you have in that shop, you can use it in your retail shop. If in that shop you were dealing with people, in retail you're also going to be dealing with people. So phrase how the skill that you gained in your previous environment will assist you in this job that you're applying for. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Siwe. There's also another CV question. Because of the POPI Act, should you add references on your CV? Or maybe regardless of the POPI Act, you know, how do you manage references in the job search process?
Okay. It's important when you're referencing, whoever you're referencing knows that you've placed them on their CV. So get permission. Even there's POPI Act, but get permission that I'm going to use Lisa on my CV. I'm going to use Mrs. Makanya on my CV. Let me get permission from them so that when they do get a call from your prospective employers, they're not shocked. They're expecting that they're going to give you a good reference. So get permission. Tell people that you're applying for a position in so and so. Can they please be your reference, so that they expect to get a call from whoever? Yeah.
And then just in terms of the recruitment process in your experience, is it actually necessary to put those references on your CV? Is it something that will be asked that you send later, maybe once the company is more interested in learning more about you? What could you recommend?
Okay. Well, in my environment, we usually we go for trainees who are fresh graduates. So we don't expect to see a reference from a graduate. If you do have a reference, then it's an add-on of things that you were doing while you were in university, but not really. But then at times maybe they don't require your reference. You go through various levels in the recruitment phase, and you're writing a test. If you pass that, get the interview process, and then they will request for references, and they will inform you that we will be getting in touch with these people just to make sure that what you have said is truthful. Yeah.
Okay, then I'm just checking the time. We've got, I think there's 2 more questions. So let's just run through them. I would like to know how to deal with a manager who forgets they are a manager and starts making decisions based on who they are friends with.
Mm. Okay, that's who they are friends with. Yeah, we do get those situations where a person would, you feel like they're favoring a friend. If that's the case, I think it's best for you to actually just approach the situation, approach their manager and just ask them that, what informed your decision? Because I would like my 1, 2, and 3 to be considered in future, and just get, like, instead of assuming that they made the decision based on friendship, try get an understanding of what informed that decision, and ask them, what can you do better in future for you to be considered in future, or for your ideas to be considered. Try get into their project, ask them that, are there additional jobs I can assist with? Because remember, also in the workplace, it's also about managing relationships. If you're just going to be a person that sits in their corner and just does their task, and not, I mean, you mentioned earlier, Lisa, that also you don't want to say yes too much and be abused. But at the same time, it's also very important for you to raise your hand and say that I'm available for a certain task, so that people can see that you can be trusted with those tasks, and that gains you favor. So again, it is a catch-22 that you don't want to bite too much and then you have too many responsibilities. But at the same time, if you're not visible, people won't make decisions that are in your favor, and then you'll come up with a conclusion that, no, they said this because they are friends with so and so. It's because probably that person is more visible in the workplace. So yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, so I think what you said now is key in terms of how do you manage these relationships effectively, but also professionally.
Correct.
And then we spoke earlier about culture also comes up in the workplace. So this is for me a very relevant question. How do you cope in an environment where men call each other by clan names, even in meetings? I ask this because I feel it sidelines us women, because we cannot, by African culture, call another man who's not your husband by clan name. HR allows it. While we're engaging in a meeting, you find that they are calling each other by clan names, and you have no idea who they speak about or with. It's frustrating, and HR doesn't find it wrong. It drives me mad.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It feels like, no, they're becoming more friends and you don't have anything to relate to them with. It's a very tricky one. But it's about fostering relationships, man. Find something interesting to communicate with them about, they may go ahead and address each other with their clan names. But what else can you offer, in terms of communicating with them? Find something interesting to talk about. If they're during downtime, tea time, your interests are cars as well, and you see that this person has an interest in cars, put that up as a conversation, small talk, but at the same time remaining professional, because the guys can address each other with their clan names, but at the end of the day, we need to deliver our work. The clan names are not going to deliver the work. So find interesting things, foster relationships in the workplace, but remember to be professional, while you do so.
There's a question there, is being patient also a skill? Is it an important skill, maybe also the question, in the context of now being professional in the workplace?
Okay, so I would look at it as being patient. You're a senior trying to teach a junior. You need to balance it. Yes, your workplace does require, if you're a manager, your workplace does require for you to be a teacher. And being a teacher, you need to be patient. But at the same time, you need to not accept mediocrity. So in you teaching, you expect to see the results. So you would say the first time, you'll say the second time, you say the third time, the fourth time, I expect you to be able to deliver. So patience is important, but you also expect to see the results of you being patient. Yeah.
Thank you. And then I just want to see how I could rephrase this question a bit.
Okay.
But there is a question about online job applications. But then the person also mentions retail links maybe on WhatsApp, and you are asked questions. Do they really use all of that information when shortlisting candidates?
Okay.
So perhaps broader in terms of, you know, often when you do apply online for jobs, there may be application forms that you need to complete. There's a lot of information that you need to supply. So how does that feature in terms of the recruitment process?
Okay. Firstly, when you do receive a job application via WhatsApp or any social platform, I think it's very important for you to go back to the official website of that workplace and make sure that that application is actually legit. Because now, when you do apply, you'll be providing sensitive information. If they require an ID copy, we mentioned things about IDs earlier on, that's a sensitive document. If they require your home address, that's sensitive information. So it's very important to make sure that that link is actually credible. If you have to go as far as actually calling the organization to verify that that position, that application for that position does exist, go as far as calling, you know, asking them that this website, can I apply on this website? Can I use this link? Call and find out if it's a credible link to use, because you will be putting very sensitive information out there.
I think you mentioned something very important now, is that, you know, as you said, especially on social media platforms, but even online, and there may be even in-person opportunities, that you really need to do your due diligence in terms of checking, you know, who are you giving this information to? Yeah. Okay, and then final question on CVs. It's coming back to the references. So who do you add if there is no one who is exactly rooting for you to grow in any of your previous employers? So in general, you know, how do you find referees if it's difficult for you to go back to previous work environments?
Okay, so in your previous work environment, maybe you might not be able to add your boss, but you have people who've been working with you. So you can just speak to them that, can you speak to, if you do get called, can you talk about my character? You know, there's always somebody there who'll be able to back you up somehow. So, yeah.
I think it also relates to, you know, as you are going through your career and engaging with different people at different environments, it's also to keep in the back of your mind, you know, who are the people that you can start negotiating relationships with, to at some time act as your referee. And as you said, it doesn't always have to be your boss. There can also be maybe other people that you could negotiate that kind of relationship with. Okay, there's two final questions, and then we really need to end off. So how can the issue of the lack of planning from leaders and the problem of suggestions becoming your responsibility instead of leaders taking ownership of decisions? So maybe broadly in terms of how do you work in an environment where you do not necessarily agree, you know, with how things are being done?
Okay, if that's the case, I think be the change that you want to see in your workplace environment. If you work in teams, encourage that, okay, maybe once a week, let's meet together, have a face-to-face meeting, you know, and bring up these points. You'll be very surprised that what you see as an issue, many people see it as an issue. And if you all together in one room, you guys can come up with a workable solution. I mean, there's a saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, you know. So you make that, you create the change that you want to see in your workplace environment. There's always a way to do it, you know. Get the buy-in of one or two people from your team. That group will grow, and you'll be surprised to see that many people have been wanting to make that change.
Thank you, Busiwe. Okay, there is a question about how to deal with a boss who often changes his stance. There's no consistency. Also favoring of certain employees. There's an in-group and an out-group.
Yeah, I think that one is, yeah, the favoritism in the workplace is there. I think let's go back to the policy. What does the policy say? If you also see that somebody else is being favored, and it's no use just sitting back and just taking that on. Approach the situation, approach your boss and say that I see that you favored 1, 2, and 3. Most likely that person will be very embarrassed to see that, okay, yeah, I did favor this person, but maybe this is what they did differently from what you did. But the fact that they know now that you can see that there's favoritism, they'll be very careful about it. So face on the situation,
And Busisi, we thank you for your kindness, and we are going to go a few minutes over time. But I think this last question, just a question on time management and work-life balance. If you have to work a 9-to-5 workday, how do you learn to manage your time? And in regards to the work-life balance, what is your advice to first-time workers to balance life when starting a job?
Okay. The first question, if you have a 9-to-5, and how you make sure that you are effective within those hours. What I usually do, I have a checklist. So in the morning or the day before, just before I knock off, I'll write down that these are the tasks that I need to have done by the end of the day, or these were the tasks that I should have achieved by the end of the day. If they're going to carry over to the following day, how do I plan to achieve them? And then I tick off, and that task of ticking off also helps me mentally to see that, okay, that's a win for the day. If I see that, okay, I haven't been able to achieve 1, 2, and 3, then I put in a few hours in the evening, because it does so happen that during the day you do lose your concentration. Something happens and you're not as effective. So I'll put in maybe an hour or 2 in the evening to make sure that I cover up for the fact that I didn't progress that much during the day. And then your second question, what was it, Lisa?
No, I think you've covered it.
Okay.
So I think the tip that you gave about, having this checklist is a very physical or a very like concrete way for you to keep track of what it is that you still need to do. But it's also a way of celebrating what you've already done. So it also gives you that sense of achievement. Yeah. Okay. The rest of there's 2 more questions, but I've got resources that I'm going to share with you.
Okay.
And I will come back to these questions after we've ended the meeting. There's a question about the issue of references. So there's a document that I'm going to share with the group. And then also there was a question about including a qualification that you're currently pursuing on the CV. You may correct me if I'm wrong, Busisiwe, but normally you would have a section on your CV for qualifications in progress or current qualifications, and then also what you've already completed. So it's important when we talk about CV writing in general, just thinking about what is the position that you're applying for, what is the information that this organization will need to help them make a decision whether to invite you for an interview or not. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen again. There's just a couple of announcements before we end off the session. So just some resources that I want to share with you. You can take a photo of the QR code. The next 2 slides, there are 2 resources that are very important in your job search process. So the first one is the PNet Grad Pack. This one, as well as the next book that I'm going to share with you, which is the Grad Next book. It contains a lot of information about job searching, but then also issues around personal branding, how to prepare for interviews, CV writing, and even some advice about starting your own business. So I would really encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to go and download those books and see what kind of tips you can get and advice around the whole job search process. Then we are encouraging you to register to attend the Virtual Grad Expo for this year. The Virtual Grad Expo is basically an online platform that is powered by the South African Graduates Employment Association. And it's a platform where organizations share information about, for example, bursaries, scholarships, work experience, as well as graduate opportunities. This year, there will be a live event on the 29th of July, where you would be able to watch webinars where organizations will share further information. You'll also be able to chat to different employers to hear or to ask questions about the kind of opportunities. Busisiwe spoke earlier about the importance of attending, for example, careers fairs. So this is one opportunity that we really encourage you to make use of. And then we also publish career event information on the Unisa events calendar. So our next event is investing in your personal and professional development. That's on the 3rd of July. And then on the 8th of July, we will be talking about if you don't do politics, politics will do you. So it's about navigating office politics ethically and successfully. So both of these topics are definitely a follow-on from what we've been talking about today. And if I look at all the questions that came through and the discussions that we've had, it would seem that it's very important for us to talk about these kind of things that crop up in the workplace and how do we manage these. And then lastly, our contact details for counselling and career development. We offer counselling and guidance for students in terms of career, academic and personal development. So you're welcome to drop us an email. You can make an online appointment on Microsoft Teams. You can also contact a counsellor at a regional office to make an appointment for in-person counselling. And then on our website, as well as our YouTube channel, we share a lot of resources that you can use to support your career, but also your academic and personal development. So on that note, if I could just ask you to end off the session for us.
Thank you, Lisa. What a fruitful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I would once again like you to give a round of applause to our guest speaker today for such insights that as she shared today. And we just want to, as a Unisa community, our students and DCCD, we just want to extend our gratitude to Busisiwe for her time. We know she is busy. Thank you for sparing this time just to come and share with our students. We hope that this will not be the last time. And also thank you, Lisa, for steering the ship so well and the way you have handled the program. It was excellent. And ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much. As Lisa has made announcements, please don't miss the coming events because there will be a build up on today's topic, especially the 8th and the 28th, where we will be diving on the workplace issues and politics and how to manage those. Don't miss that one on the 8th as well as the 28th, where we'll be diving on multi-generational differences in the workplace. With that being said, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and everything of the best for those who are still waiting for their results. We hope that it will go well. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Busisiwe.
Thank you very much, colleagues. And also, I really appreciate all the engagement from those of you who've attended. As I've mentioned, I will be sharing further resources in the Teams chat. So also just, take a note of when those come through. You will also get a link to a recording of this session on Teams, and you will also receive an email to your MyLife email address. With that, we're going to end our session. Thank you very much, and thank you, Busisiwe. Take care.